We are one. We are one. You know, it's an interesting idea, this concept of oneness, because a lot of us are really exploring what this actually means now. How do we contextualize this idea in this world that is clearly being shaken? How do we find that place where we can know ourselves, know each other in a place and in a heart filled with love and oneness when our temptation is to do anything but? My talk is titled God 3.0. So I want you to just consider that the ideas, the relationships, the beliefs that you may have about God could be anchored in a context that does not work for you. Perhaps it never did. You know, so much of what we learn in a Judeo-Christian society is based on Scripture, and I got to tell you, a lot of that Scripture is wrong. It's just plain wrong. It's time to cross it out. Now, I'm not just saying this, I'm not just going rogue. I've been listening to a lot of different teachers lately. One of them that I listen to is from Christ Universal Temple, which is where Johnny Coleman, she founded that. It's where many, many teachers have gotten their understanding. And it is more of a unity of a Christian idea, but with a metaphysical bent. And that bending is getting bigger and stronger. So here's the thing. This is why some of these scriptures are wrong. They are anchored in a historical context. So please, please, please do not sell your daughter into slavery if she wears polyester. Would you just agree that that is not something that you're going to do? So, God 3.0 has always existed, and it is not a God or presence or power that is new or revolutionary. All faith traditions and practices indeed invite us to live in and as this realm of what we're going to call ascension consciousness. Our great block, though, our biggest wall, that thing which stands in the way and causes us massive struggle on the way to attaining this realm of God 3.0 or ascension consciousness, is leaving behind our commitment to the old familiar ideas of God, the old familiar operating systems with which most of us grew up. In other words, we've got God 1.0, we've got God 2.0. They're safe, and at the same time, terrifyingly dysfunctional. They are these realms of belief that we cling to and we operate from. Both 1.0 and 2.0 are based in full-on separation, a God out there, dualism, and a commitment to thinking that we're going to be rescued or that we are victims, and that we must need this moody presence, this old man up in the sky who clearly has anger issues and has fallen off his meds to hopefully, please, 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 God, come save me, make this better. You know, people ask the question all the time, with all of these issues in the world, with all this stuff that's going on, why doesn't God do anything? We are that which is to do that. We are that God. We are how God works in the world. So, the old God is one who can rescue or destroy. It's one who can love you and then turn on a dime and hate you. That doesn't work for me. The old God has its roots and its power in personality, not possibility. We want to look at possibility. We want to look at that. So let's just do a little short history of humanity and God, okay? In the beginning, there was God 1.0. This is God 1.0. Get the heck out of my garden. You two, Adam and Eve, have screwed up big time. I told you to be superstitious and fearful and to not eat the fruit, but you never listen. And by the way, snakes are everywhere, so be very, very, very afraid. P.S. If the snakes don't get you, I will. That's my job. I'm God. I'm ruler, creator, destroyer, and I am a neurotically insecure, jealous brat. So next, we move from the Old Testament to the New Testament, and God 2.0 was introduced. But like many computer and living operating systems, only a few had the access or the means to use this upgrade. Now, while some features from God 1.0 remained, a thorough repackaging took place with the introduction of God 2.0. Just go with me here. The big rollout of God 2.0 happened, of course, in the New Testament. God 2.0 was kinder, gentler, and the New Testament branding presented God 2.0 as far more stable and user-friendly than the older versions. The problem, however, was that God 2.0 was only available and workable on select operating systems. Not the Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Taoist, or atheist, and certainly not the hybrid agnostic systems. In fact, the folks at Bible Central insisted that when everybody saw this new version, they would be so excited they would all want to convert to the only platform on which it would work, the Christian one. Traditional Christian. That's the one where you sell your daughter because she's wearing polyester. It didn't work out that way, and not everyone wanted to change up their system. So marketing decided to get very aggressive about this. They began forcing people to change to this platform. Anybody remember the Spanish Inquisition? In fact, there were centuries of violence, murder, and torture as some 2.0 representatives refused to consider that not everyone wanted to believe and behave like them. So now finally, today, we find ourselves at a nexus of wanting to not just understand other operating platforms and systems, but to actually collaborate with them in order to create a much better user experience overall. Welcome to God 3.0. This is where we are. Now, I'm not the only one who has proposed this idea. In fact, Deepak Chopra wrote a book a number of years ago called The Third Jesus. And it is that same idea that we move from the presence out here that can destroy us to the presence that has become more loving and benign and supportive, till finally the presence is in as it is us. It is that truth of who we are. So God 3.0 is that universal God of presence, possibility, love, wholeness, vision, flow, expansion, harmony, and evolution. Everybody breathe. Take a deep breath. Breathe that in. Ernest Holmes wrote, "There is a power for good in the universe, and we can use it." That is the God that we are talking about. That is the presence we are talking about. Now, of course, God doesn't change. We have created this idea in our image. And as we have had limitations, we have projected those onto this idea of God or spirit or presence or whatever it is that you call that. That idea, that fundamental core, which is God, which is infinite intelligence, has never changed. But you and I need to grow up so that we can have an adult God. We need to become adult spiritual beings. Because as we do that, we begin to have an adult relationship with this presence, with this power. We have been working with the book, The Five Principles. It is the long title is The Five Principles of Unity, written by Ellen Davenport. And some of you who have taken some of my prayer classes know that I have used this book quite extensively. And I love it because it is universal principles. This week we are looking at Principle 1. God is absolute good, everywhere present. Can you hang with that? God is absolute good, everywhere present. And she writes this: a God of oneness is immanent and transcendent, that is within us and all around us. We are like fish in water, largely unaware of the sustaining force in which we exist. Sounds a lot like Rumi, doesn't it? That we are not single individual drops in the ocean. We are the ocean, individualized as those drops, and collectively we are that ocean. So now, this is not a new idea. Let's look at some of the ideas that have, through the ages, that have invited us to have an expanded concept of God, an expanded use of God, an expanded knowing, and a collaboration with a heart, a presence that is absolutely responsive and creative. But it does all of that through us. So the Buddhist sutras envisioned a net stretching in all directions. I can see that. The Hopis spoke of Spider Grandmother, who spun a great web connecting all things. To the ancient Chinese, it was the Tao, or flow of the universe. The hymn of creation from the Hindu Rig Veda speaks of the absolute, called Brahman, and describes it as ultimate, eternal, and beyond human description. This is the ground of being, or infinite reality. This is that bigger presence. It is that bigger idea. We must expand. We must get bigger to know this. So we hear the names God, Holy Spirit, the universe, the way, Father, Mother, Creator, Divine, One Mind, Source Energy, First Cause, and thanks to Star Wars, the Force. We hear Allah, we hear Buddha, Christ, Kali, Shiva, Krishna, and Kuan Yin, all concepts of the divine. Even physicist Max Planck, the originator of quantum theory, spoke of conscious and intelligent mind. And astronaut Edgar Mitchell called it nature's mind. I love that. In scientific terms, it is a field of pure potential, an energy that underlies all creation. It is all that is. So just imagine it. It is the energy that underlies all creation and connects all creation. It is woven through. It is that tapestry in which we are all sustained. We are all fed. We are all nourished. We are held, and we are a part of it. We partake of it, but we never drain it. So you might have gotten by now that the big leap we have to take in order to live in this realm of God 3.0, this bigger God, this bigger awareness, is that we have to be willing to leave our old ideas behind and to move from our absolutely, my gosh, it shows up so much every day in society, our binary thinking. We live in binary thinking. We have red and blue, black and white, right or wrong, up or down, conservative, liberal. We have all of these things, and if people don't fit into those, we decide to shove them into those rankings anyway, thereby separating ourselves even more from them. So much for oneness, right? So much for that bigger God weaving us as that hoping net. It's not there when we have that binary thinking. And anything that disturbs or mushes across that line is very confusing. It makes us very uncomfortable. And we tend to respond with resistance. But our world right now, and particularly this nation, is discovering finally the limitations and the pain of binary or dualistic thinking and living. You know, these ideas aren't viable. They never were. But now we're waking up that we have to the idea that we have to live here together. We can no longer afford to be judging people. And you know, we judge it from that place within us that is threatened or feels less than. It is not about what the truth of their being. It's someone else to believe. It's so much easier to believe that there is a right and a wrong, that there's a left and a right. Because if we can categorize all of that stuff, then we actually don't have to do the work, right? We can remain in our victim justifications. We can remain there as victims, and we don't have to take responsibility. So the pain is we feel helpless. There's no gift. No, there's really no gift. It's just pain. There's just pain when we are in that place of believing we are helpless. So it's so easy to believe, too, that someone else is in the way of our success or our happiness. But I got to tell you that living a disempowered victim life is hardly the recipe for an inspired and glorious life. Being a victim is not a spiritual gift. I want you to know that being a victim, believing yourself a victim, is not a spiritual gift. We can fault a culture, a religion, other people, anyone who is less, who that we think is less than us or more than us. And none of that is going to work if we are going to move into this place of knowing that there is a power for good in the universe and we can use it. When we place responsibility for our lives outside of our lives, we basically have locked ourselves in prison. And guess who holds the key? We do. So Ernest Holmes wrote this: "The divine plan is one of freedom. The inherent nature of man is ever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom, because freedom is the birthright of every living soul." It is the birthright. Our soul is ever leading us into a place of freedom, of expansion, of great knowing, of great compassion, greater compassion, of great experience of abundant awareness. So now, I got to tell you a little personal story. My husband, Charlie, and I have been participating every week in a little peaceful, sweet demonstration for Black Lives Matter in the little town where we live, which is Newberg, Oregon. Newberg is very small. But this demonstration started a few weeks ago with about 8 people. Then it was 11 people. This last Friday, there were 15 people. It's held at the base of a big American flag in the town square, which was set there by students and faculty years ago of George Fox University. Quakers. I'm all in with Quakers. Quakers love peace. Quakers don't want to fight. Quakers want to encompass and to bless and to grow. So every Friday night, it's about an hour from 5 to 6 p.m., and you'll see us there encountering someone who brings their infant and somebody else brings their dog. We all wear our mask, and most of us are holding signs or placards which read Black Lives Matter or something similar. We have a sign which we made that reads Justice for All. That's it, Justice for All. I also have a really big flag that I got from Black Lives Matter, and I wear my Ally t-shirt. We stand there peacefully. Just that. No yelling, no screaming, no obscenities or curse words. And many of our people even wear red, white, and blue. I wear my Air Force veteran ball cap, baseball cap. We are all very well behaved. So most of the people who drive by are really supportive. They're excited. They yell thank you. They give us the thumbs up. They honk. And yet, you'd think based on the reactions of a select few, and not many, that we were holding signs advocating death and painful destruction to all life. It's really interesting. I don't know what they think we're holding on those signs. Like there's a secret language that it's writing I can't read. It's invisible. You have to only have the vision because maybe it says Black Lives Matter, everyone else sucks. It doesn't say that. It really, really doesn't. It doesn't say Black Lives Matter, you're a worm in the dust. It doesn't say that. And I sometimes wonder, what if we had written Black Lives Matter, comma, 2? I think that it would still anger them. It's been a really good exercise in practicing oneness. You know, I do the Buddhist prayer constantly. They drive by and they yell things. They yell, you are an effing, I'm going to say flowering. Let's use the word flower. We'll substitute for effing. You are a flowering terrorist. Yes, they do. They yell that. And all lives matter. Now, I have to tell you, I have been a minister for almost 5 years. I'm a mom, and I'm a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. We pay our taxes. We recycle. We love our neighbors. Every pet we've ever had is a rescue pet. We bring food to the homeless. And last winter, we helped set up cots and beds in a homeless warming shelter in our little town whenever the temperature went below freezing. We buy local. But all of those people who drove past us and swearing and calling us terrorists know nothing about who we are. They were anchored in their binary lives. Their assumptions were based in that world of us versus them, you versus me. So I want you to imagine for a moment how our nation, how our world would be if we just lifted up our thinking to a place of no more you, no more me, no more you versus me, just like this song I just sang, where we lift it up beyond our strictly binary judgment. It's duality. It's duality, and it limits us. And I gotta say that if we all, and it starts just with a few, it starts with us here and those of us listening, if we decided to honor our soul's imperative and honor it in everybody else, to be free of judgments, free of duality, free of fear, and free of labels which make us comfortable but really actually constrict and hurt us. Can you imagine how that would feel? So now, are you willing to free yourself from any of the last vestiges or shreds of dualistic believing? Are you ready to move from this awareness that says God is up here somewhere and judging me, God 1.0, who clearly has issues, into this knowing that there's a greater power and presence, that there is a greater idea, and it is each of us, it is surrounding and filling us. Are you willing to finally let go of the idea that here's one, are you willing to let go of the idea that there's a separate power for evil? That it is its own entity and it is trying to get our time, our talents, and our treasures, and it shows up by means of the other. So Ellen Davenport writes about evil in her book, The Five Principles. She says, to grant evil a power of its own would be to accept it as inevitable. I much prefer to think of evil as a result of human error. Then we can do something about it. The Holocaust, Rwanda, Darfur, and every other example of human immaturity run amok. Hear that again, human immaturity run amok, that adolescent mindset. Those things don't have to happen again. They're happening now. They don't have to happen again. We can indeed change the world by changing our thinking, by evolving consciously as a species. Now, she says that the alternative is to believe that we are at the mercy of these forces, the ones that oppose good. They oppose us. These things that good battles evil, God versus the enemy, you and I against others, victory or defeat. Are we willing to stop that? So many people hold that view, and when anything goes wrong, they reassure themselves that they are just victims of a dangerous world. Not me. I'm not going to do it. I can't. I cannot live in that world, and I will not. Taking responsibility for ourselves as co-creators with God is far less popular, she writes, and a lot more work. So one of the authors I like a lot is Walter Starkey, and he wrote a book called It's All God, The Fertilizer and the Flowers. And he wrote, there is no way we can understand or conceive of what the spiritual masters experienced until we transcend believing in good and bad, or what is called in Eastern thought the pairs of opposites. Charles Fillmore wrote this in his book, The Revealing Word. To the extent that man practices identifying himself with the one and only source of existence, he becomes spirit. He becomes spirit. She becomes spirit. We become spirit until finally the union attains a perfection in which we can say with Jesus, I and the Father are one. Now here's the thing. I think Jesus really blew it when he said God is the Father, because it put us into centuries and centuries of thinking that God was something out here, a parent. And if you had an abusive parent, then now God is your abusive parent. But this is the thing. As Jesus was teaching this concept of a loving source and substance, he actually used the word Abba. Abba, which means daddy. It means daddy, like loving daddy, supportive. Or this idea of Yahweh, big presence, loving presence. But the Bible people, the Bible writers, the publishers, the writers who, by the way, did keep books out, decided they wanted to have this, that they needed this, they needed a club. They needed something to keep people in line. I am such a heretic today. Anybody with me? Okay, hands are all up. Good. We'll all burn together. I don't believe in that. So Charles also wrote this. Man, it's about separation from God. Here's what separation is. Man or woman being the offspring of God. Now here God as source, not as daddy, has the power to create. We have used this privilege and created a realm of error thought, which separates us in consciousness from the Father or from the source. We use this power to create, and we create such crap, don't we? We create such dissension and such enmity. We can do it differently. Ernest Holmes wrote that the great have not failed to recognize the appearance of evil, but they have separated the appearance from the reality. They've done away with evil as a cosmic entity. No devil, no hell, no torment, no damnation outside of one's own state of thought. no punishment outside of that self-inflicted through ignorance, and no salvation outside of conscious cooperation with the infinite. Heaven and hell are states of consciousness. And this is what all of these brilliant minds are telling us. This is what our heart is telling us. This is what my heart tells me, that this is a bigger idea than that simple thing that I can put into a jar here and a jar there and call it good and lock it up on the shelf. That is not how this works, that we are bigger than that. And it has been our idea that we are separate from God that has kept us in this place of war, that has kept us in this place of unhappiness. And by the way, has kept us in this place of sickness, lack, and fear. So you might be wondering what holds the system in place, that idea of us versus them. It's the belief in not enough. And it starts from within, because as within, so without. When we believe we are not enough, when we believe we are separate from the infinite loving presence and power and mind and wisdom and abundance, that is spirit, that is God, whatever your name, force. When we think that and we think we are not enough, then it's really, really easy to go to that place that somebody else is more than enough. That idea within of not enough here demonstrates out here of not enough there. So we think there isn't enough work. We think there isn't enough money. We think there aren't enough places that we can live that are safe and beautiful. We think that there aren't enough whatever it is for you. That is not the spiritual truth. That is not the spiritual truth. The spiritual truth is that God is all there is, and God is infinite, infinite good, infinite love, infinite power, infinite presence, and we are surrounded and filled by that. We are, as I like to say, divined by that, not defined by our beliefs about limitation. We are not defined by that unless we choose to be. So our invitation is truly to move beyond that, to move beyond that place where we think we are